The wildfire situation and the plight of evacuees continues to make some headlines this week. The Saskatchewan government is taking some heat for its response on the front lines, helplines, and airlines. Meanwhile, American liquor quietly returned to store shelves as Saskatchewan reversed its ban. And another story we brought you on the 306 this week, a homeless encampment in Regina was dismantled. Well, to help us make sense of those issues, the 306 Public Affairs panel is back. Dale Richardson is principal at Earnscliffe Strategies in Regina. Jack Saddleback is a professional speaker in Saskatoon, but right now he's joining us from Fort Chipewyan today. Good afternoon, Jack.
Hey, Mio Kisago.
And hello, Dale.
Hello. My mic's not on.
Hold on.
Oh, there we go. Now my mic is on. Thank you.
Let's start with the wildfire response. Saskatchewan's ombudsman called out the government for failing to provide the basics for evacuees like food and shelter, and she announced she is conducting an investigation. Now, this isn't common for the ombudsman to criticize something publicly kind of while it's happening. Dale, just what are your thoughts on the fact that she did that?
Yeah, when that news came out that she was kind of commenting on, in real time on the issue, that I did think to myself, I can't recall ever seeing something like that. The auditor doing that for sure would have raised some eyebrows amongst folks at the legislative building, particularly on the government side. But obviously she felt like she had to act based on the concerns or the phone calls or the complaints that were coming into her. I don't really know what she's going to do with that now. It was just kind of a as we said, a very strange thing to do in the moment and say, this people are calling my office and it seems to be a problem for them. So I don't know what she's going to do now. I guess she'll give some kind of report. But yeah, that definitely raised my eyebrows when she did that.
Jack, what about you?
I think it's good that this was brought forward, as quite often as folks who are in urban or southern parts of Saskatchewan, sometimes we don't hear the challenges that are happening in northern communities. And what was transpiring during the fire evacuations obviously gave merit to the commissioner to raise some flags about this. And if I may say, when it comes to the report aspect, what can take place is utilizing this information to make it better as we go forward. Because we've had this conversation just a few weeks ago that we need to be better prepared in these aspects of fire evacuations, of wildfires, and what that looks like for citizens. We've heard of folks getting left behind or forgotten about when it comes to resources. And I'm very, very curious to see what this report will actually paint a picture for us as the public.
Dale, what was interesting was the very next day, the Premier announced all evacuees over the age of 18 would be getting a check for $500. What'd you make of that response?
It was fine. This is something that I'm personally having a hard time wrapping my head around because I'm not one of the evacuees. I'm not affected by it. I'm assuming for most people that it'll be helpful in some fashion. I think my understanding is that it's flowing from government to the communities, and then the communities they're dispersing it to the people affected. Something is certainly better than nothing. As you were talking about a tornado that's near Carnduff right now. Not many people know that, but I just would want to share this. When I was in university, I was in Alabama on exchange for 1 year, and there was a very bad tornado where I lived. Basically ruined half the city, killed a couple people. I had to leave early, going back to Canada. And the only thing that really truly matters, even if a city is devastated, if a community is devastated, if you don't have a home left, if your businesses and buildings in the city, if they're totally gone, the only thing that really matters is am I safe? Are my loved ones safe? And thankfully that's been the case in this, in this fire season. But I think a little bit of money is probably great. But I suspect that most of the people are at least happy that they are safe and their loved ones are safe as well.
Jack, what do you make of the timing of that $500 and just using that as a way to kind of support evacuees? Some might say it's not nearly enough or it's too late, and others might say, hey, great, we could use this. We could use any help we can get.
Honestly, all of the above. When it comes to the fact that this has come almost after the whole fiasco that took place and these catastrophic wildfires that are certainly quite traumatic for our community members. What they needed at that time was coordinated events, coordination between the provincial government, the Red Cross, and the SPSA. And unfortunately, that wasn't necessarily the case in some instances. When it does come to these resources, the $500 that is be given to citizens that are affected by this, I applaud the efforts, but it's unfortunate that it didn't come at a time where they needed food, they needed lodging, they needed help. And now that they're finally able to go back, certainly it's going to help some who were able to maybe use their credit card. But what about those other ones who were sleeping in tents or in their own car? What is that going to look like? Are they utilizing that just to cover the immediate living costs, or are they having to catch up to those costs that they now incurred?
Well, we're happy that people have been able to go back to a lot of their... Go ahead, Dale.
I was just going to say, I mean, just overall on this issue, we talked about that on the last show we did a couple of weeks ago. At that time, I think there was kind of continuous smoke even down here. Even talking about these issues, living in Regina, I feel quite disconnected from the whole thing. And as I've said already today, I'm having a hard time just giving an opinion on things because I'm not up there. We're six
right. I'm thinking
plus
more
hours
from
away.
A government response.
No, understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I'm just trying to paint the picture that it's just. I think it's hard. It seems very much like a regional issue right now, and it's important. And I'm not discounting. I'm just as a person talking about these issues and trying to understand in particular what people in the north have been dealing with for the last number of weeks in particular. We've had some smoke down here, Peter. I mean, generally speaking, things have been okay. Right. It's just hard to understand really what exactly people are dealing with, and if $500 is enough, as Jack said, maybe it is for some. Maybe it's nothing at all. It's hard for me personally to say.
You know what? Before we move on, I just want to say, Dale, that's a great point. Because as we shared at the beginning of this, us in urban or southern parts of Saskatchewan, we don't necessarily get interactions with this. At the same time, we have individuals who, yes, are from southern Saskatchewan, but have cabins up there, family cabins that have been in their generations. And that's more of a recreational space. But then we also have people who live up there in their own homes and their own livelihood, unfortunately, have just vanished over this past few weeks. So I'm glad we're talking about this because we're able to build up the empathy and compassion for our citizens of Saskatchewan that we don't necessarily hear too much from at other parts of the year.
Look, those are all valuable points, again, from us from afar, but I do think that it speaks to preparedness and what we do when these situations happen. And in this case, after an ombudsman report, the premier, whether he had decided to do this or not before that report or before the ombudsman spoke out, was whether this was a plan or not. This is how they went to approach helping people. Now, another thing is with preparedness that's been making the headlines, of course, this week is aircrafts. A new water bomber and 4 other planes have not been active because of lack of pilot training and maintenance issues. A lot of back and forth in this, Dale. What's your reaction to it?
Well, it sucks. I mean, for the people that that are on the political side of government, they're not the ones that are ordering these planes, right? It's the SPSA and other ministries probably that are. They're advising the premier and cabinet and the ministers, okay, we're going to bring in this plane and it'll be great and it'll do this. And then it arrives and, actually it's a plane where the pilots, they need certain training and the pilots that we have, they don't have that training. I mean, it's these kinds of things which it drives the people on the political side of government nuts because they are relying on the advice of their officials and that's how government works. But of course, people like the premier and the minister and the ministers around it, they're the ones that have to go out and, face some pretty significant and pretty understandable questions from the media and the public as to, what exactly happened here, you guys. So, I mean, I just, as somebody who used to work in government, there's these things like this that unfortunately pop up from time to time, and it can be very frustrating because ultimately, the premier didn't bring the plane in, but he has to go and do the press conference and stuff.
You do make a good point, and I want to follow up. Jack, we'll come to you on this in just a second. But what is the role of the government then in this sort of preparedness and knowing, right? You're right. They don't know what the mechanical issues are of planes necessarily, but shouldn't they be overseeing and saying, we got to make sure we have pilots trained up for this, and we have to make sure that our planes are in good shape because we know we're going to get hit by wildfires.
Yes, and you can bet, a lot of money that the premier and the minister responsible, we're saying to their officials, do not mess up like this again. Going forward, we need to be very tight on these things. So, I mean, from government's perspective on the political side, their focus is if there is a problem, figure out what it is, fix it, and then moving forward, make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because, I mean, it's people's lives and property are at stake here.
Jack, I don't know if you have any thoughts just on this, controversy around planes being used or not, but I also just wonder if everything we've talked about, if the government's handling of wildfires this season will have long-term political impacts.
I think what we've heard is ongoing frustration, especially this season. We've seen these catastrophic events, particularly around wildfires, take place before. We've known and by we, I mean like environmental scientists and other areas of industry that have seen the drought aspects and the dryness that has come within our province, that this was a little bit of a ticking time bomb. So why wasn't there a plan or a progressive sort of move to talk about these things on a more of a diverse basis with industry, with community, with Indigenous community, and with emergency planning departments? This is something that is going to have to be continually addressed on an annual basis, because we shared this a couple of weeks ago that this type of weather, unfortunately, is not going to change. This is now a global situation and impact that is taking place in our own province. And we, as a province, can only do what we can in the space that we are in. On a globalized aspect, that's a larger conversation of addressing climate change and the dryness and wild weather that we have coming on.
All right, I want to move along to talk about...
By the way, Peter, it does seem like it's going to rain a lot next week, which, fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
I mean, that would be fantastic.
It is today already.
That's what we need.
We got to talk about American booze because it's back on Saskatchewan store shelves. We talked about this when things were really going wild with the United States, and this was a bit of a Team Canada response. The government and SOGA has kind of quietly allowed American alcohol to be sold again. Dale, why do you think the government did this?
First of all, I'm not a great person to be asking about this because I don't drink. So I'll just put on my what I used to.
Budweiser makes non-alcoholic beer.
Oh, I never really was a Bud drinker. I did like Bud Light for a little while though. Listen, I've been thinking about it this way. I don't know what the inner workings were on this one, but let's imagine, Peter, that you run a bookstore, okay, and out of, I think, good reason, the government or the powers that be, they said, you can't sell James Patterson books anymore. But James Patterson books make up 30% of your sales. That's a pretty big ding to the bottom line of your bookstore. So
I don't think I appreciate what you're saying, but okay. I don't think it's comparable because there's other whiskey on the shelves if you're talking about buying an American whiskey.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a great person because I don't drink booze, but I know people.
Okay, well, let me ask you this way.
Wait a minute, let me finish my thought here, dude. So there are definitely people out there that prefer certain products to drink, certain beers, and I can guarantee that there are bars or liquor stores or liquor outlets in Saskatchewan that have probably complained about this and said, listen, we have customers coming in every day and saying, I'm angry that you guys don't have beer XYZ, whatever it may be. I understand about the tariffs thing. I'm not happy about the Americans either. But this is what I want to buy from you guys. And so, I mean, does the government want to keep businesses going or not going? I mean, that's probably what they're considering to a certain extent.
Jack?
I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. If we are doing Team Canada and if we are standing up to our former allies, now kind of like we're on a acquaintances level right now with our American counterparts. We're not BFFs, but acquaintances. What the government can do certainly is continue that hard line. At the same time, I will recognize that it should be up to the choice of citizens should they want to choose to buy American. Uh, all in all, I would have wanted information about this coming from the government rather than it having to come from media to showcase that the government is pulling back these policies and these hard stances against American tariffs that are still coming after us. It isn't the end of the show yet, and I'm curious on, are they going to backtrack on this when there is another big announcement? And in what, it's only been a couple of days. I suspect there's probably going to be another tariff announcement at some point. But needless to say, I want some hard stances, and we need to be able to ensure that as we go forward, there's clarity and communication from the provincial government.
If this was back 3 months ago, Peter, I would have taken a much harder stance on this. I would have said, get the American booze off the shelves. But I mean, even in the last month, at least my feeling is that things have improved a bit with the Americans. Trump seems to have pulled back from his 51st state stuff quite a bit. Seems like there might be progress on tariffs. Seems like the edges have been taking off a little bit, which is good. So,
but the reason I interrupted you in the question I was going to ask is because it seemed like another example of Alberta and Saskatchewan kind of going their own way and going against this Team Canada approach, especially because with the retaliatory tariffs and things like that, they're going to make a lot of people upset, but this was a united effort. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I've never really bought into the Team Canada approach. As I've said many times, each province has its own unique views and perspectives on things, and that's Section 91 and 92 of the Constitution. Provinces can operate in certain areas, and I don't know. It's fine. I'm honestly not super worked up about this one.
Jack?
Maybe Jack is.
Do you care about a Team Canada approach?
I certainly care that we do have people in positions of leadership that showcase that our citizenship as Canadians, our treaty understanding as treaty members is upheld, and that it is not necessarily being threatened from external sources. So the quietly removing of policies and whatnot is that's a little concerning. So keep our eyes peeled and keep our government held to account.
Let's talk quickly just about the encampment in Regina. We covered it on the show, so people should be a bit familiar. It's not going to be a problem that goes away. Dale, I just wanted to ask you, one of the advocates for homeless people here in Regina, maybe to my surprise, too, is really more critical of the province rather than the city of Regina, even though I did highlight that the city of Regina has been saying it's going to end homelessness for as long as I've lived here. What can the provincial government actually do to deal with homelessness in our cities?
I have a client that is sort of working in the homelessness space, although not really front lines. I mean, the real solution, yes, the province can do a lot. The city can do a lot. The federal government recently they have done a lot. They've provided quite a lot of funding. I think in particular the province, at least my understanding is that they can provide certain frontline supports. They can actually provide housing units potentially that they own through Sask Housing. It's such a complex issue, homelessness. This is it's not an easy one. I do think, and I know we need to wrap up, that I think that this is an area where, and I personally kind of brushed off homelessness as not a very important issue politically. I think if the Sask Party government were to move on this particular issue and make some investments coming up, I think particularly in Regina and Saskatoon, I think people might look at that and they might stand up and say, okay, these guys actually, they do have a heart. And I think that was one of their issues, the Sask Party, in last year's election was the government did a few things where, I don't know if these people care that much about people in the cities anymore. So I mean, the province can do a lot. And my understanding working with the province is that they do plan to do, maybe not everything, but certainly take some measures coming up here soon.
Jack, we'll let you talk about that another time. Thank you so much for joining us while on the road. Really appreciate it. And Dale, thank you as well.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mikisew Cree First Nation for having the Bison Integrated Genomics Project out here.
There we
Thanks.
go.